Okay, we are going to get started. Welcome everyone to today's webinar for the Bachelor of Arts in Organizational Psychology, Organizational Leadership and Psychology. I do want to start off by thanking you for your time today and the time you're going to spend with us. Hopefully it's a very informative session and you learn a thing or two. I'm very excited and I can't wait for everyone to hear this and to get all this great information that we're going to talk to you about today. Okay, so before we start, we just do want to go over a few housekeeping rules here. In today's session, you are currently in listen-only mode. So if you do have questions, feel free to ask, but please ask them in the text box, and we will address your questions either at the end of the webinar or as we move forward through the webinar. Okay. Anyone who attended tonight's webinar are going to receive a recording of the webinar, so you'll be able to listen to it for future reference. And as you can see on the left side of your screen, you're going to see a resources list, which is going to have a lot of great information for you to be able to download. So please utilize that and know that it's available there for you. Okay. So today, what we're going to be covering over today's webinar. So we're going to cover some introductions. I'm going to be introducing myself, and we also have a faculty member, Dr. Green, who's going to introduce himself. So I love it when we can have a webinar like this so we get a little bit of both sides. We get the admissions side and we also get the faculty side. So very comprehensive. We're going to go over a little bit about Maryville University, who we are, so that we have a better understanding there. We're going to cover both the Bachelor of Arts in Organizational Leadership program as well as the Bachelor of Arts in Psychology program. We're going to go a little bit over the online learning experience, so what that would look like for an online student here with Maryville. And then we're going to close it out through the admissions process, so we're going to go over the various requirements for the program, different type of application tips and information about transcripts, as well as we're going to cover tuition and financial aid. And then at the end, for any questions that we don't get through throughout the presentation, we will address at the end. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, so today, my name is James Penna. I'm an enrollment advisor here with Maryville. I have been in the industry here for about 10 years, roughly, so I do bring a lot of experience. I've worked with students between undergraduate programs all the way through doctorate programs. So I'm very excited to be able to work with each and every one of you and be able to help out in any way, shape, or form that I can. Okay, and then moving forward, today we are going to have our faculty member, Dr. Peter Green. So if you want to go ahead, Dr. Green, and introduce yourself to our lovely participants.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here tonight. I'm hoping I can give you some really good information about both our programs that we're going to be talking about tonight. I've been in higher education as an instructor professor for over 20 years. I've been at Maryville for 10, the last 10 of that. I was trained as a social psychologist, which basically means I like figuring out why people behave the way they do. Primarily relatively healthy people. I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist, never wanted to be. So, you know, when people ask me what they can do with psychology, I'm always very interested in kind of the broad range of things you can do, and some of that's going to come up tonight. And organizational leadership actually fits right into that quite well. So as we move forward, we're going to start with organizational leadership, and then we will get into psychology. And I look forward to any questions you have.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Dr. Green. Thank you for the introduction, and I think all the students are going to be very excited to get that perspective that you have to offer. It's going to be the best of both worlds here. So a little bit about Maryville University. As you can see on the screen, we were founded in 1872. So we do have a long existing track record and legacy here of almost 150 years. So we're not one of these universities that started popping up when online education started becoming big. We were around probably close to 140 years, well before online education was ever even thought of. So we've been a mainstay in the St. Louis area, and we are a private, not-for-profit university. We do hold a regional accreditation through the Higher Learning Commission. And just a few other accolades here. We are ranked by Forbes America's Top College, Best Values in Private Colleges by Kiplinger, so that was 2017. We're also an Apple Distinguished School Award winner, and additionally we are ranked by U.S. News and World Report in the top 15% of all major universities in the United States ranked. So we have some great accolades to our name, and we've been helping out students for a very, very long time here. Currently, we have 9,000 students at Maryville University, which actually represents all 50 states, and additionally up to 55 countries around the world. So Maryville University we've moved around a lot. We have a lot of different diverse students in many different countries, which is very exciting, and we continue to look forward to seeing this number grow. Currently, we have 115 plus total degrees at the undergraduate, master's, and doctoral level, of which 25 plus are 100% online, with a little over 115 on campus. And moving forward now, I will throw this back to Dr. Green so we can go into the online Bachelor of Arts in Organizational Leadership. That will be followed by the Bachelor of Arts in Psychology program, so we can get a little bit more of an understanding from the faculty perspective. So if you want to go ahead and kick it off, Dr. Green, ready and you are.
Okay, thanks, James. So here we go. So effectively, to me, our degree in organizational leadership is really designed for people who like business, but if I said not the business end of business, it's sort of the human end of business. It's the caring about people end of business. It's the how do we get people to work better? How do we get them to be happier in the businesses? It's certainly not necessarily just the how do we make more money end of business. The degree itself really plays on psychology and is interdisciplinary in nature. Again, kind of focusing on that human side of things. And you know, one of our big thrusts is making sure students understand not just the theory, but how to apply that theory. We don't think there's much more important than that. We're going to talk about specific classes in a little bit, but one of the things that you're going to notice is an emphasis on sort of research methodology, which might surprise a few people. But what we want students to be able to do as they come into this degree is give something to the business organization that may not exist depending upon who they currently have working for them. It's important to understand research, both to be able to do it. Suppose somebody's interested in developing a bonus system for a group of employees. Well, what are they going to be interested in? What's going to work? What might not work? So the ability to create a survey, to analyze that survey, to understand the results of that survey becomes really, really important. And if the actual research itself is being done by someone else, it's just a question of what are the best practices. Do bonus structures actually always work? When do they? When do they not? So things like that, from a research perspective, can actually give people a great leap forward in their career structure. We've had a couple of students in the past go on to do some pretty amazing things after this was one step in their career path, but it really, really helped out. We're always looking at what companies want, where our students wind up, what they're happy with, what they wish they had more of. And again, it's sort of the practical skill set where, you know, do you know what you need to work with a diverse group of people within the company, whatever it may be. And finally, one of the other things that we'll talk about is the senior project that I'm just an incredible fan of. It really lets each student tailor sort of that capstone experience to something that they're uniquely interested in. And we have some wonderful faculty who are very, very good at helping students craft those things in a way that they're actually both doable and meaningful. Two things that I think are really, really important. So the curriculum a little bit. All of our programs, the programs that I oversee are 128 hours, so nothing really new for me there. But we do have some clusters of classes. So we get into some leadership foundation classes, like Intro to Leadership. We really think a multicultural psychology class is important. In the changing world we live in a globalization of society that we're currently in, the ability to understand different views can't be overstated. There's probably nothing more important to a business than the ability to actually appreciate and really understand cultures and views from different places in the world. There's also, if you see below, a class in social conflict and negotiation. Any organization is going to have conflict. It's a nature of people being together. There are really good ways to deal with conflict, and unfortunately there are some not so good ways to deal with conflict. As we move forward, learning that skill can be really good, and that class is designed to be a really memorable class. The organizational development change class is more of a senior level class, kind of works with a particular organization. Some students who go into this degree are very keen on human resource management, so that's an optional class. We think industrial organizational psychology is a very good class. Personnel psychology might pertain more to sort of the talent development end of businesses. And then, so what I mentioned before, the social science research sequence. We are interested in making sure students understand research methodology. From the research design end of things, we throw in a statistics course to make sure that there's enough understanding of some fairly basic kind of statistical analyses that you're likely to see. I'm not going to pretend that one class in statistics is going to make you a statistical master. It won't. But it should give you enough to understand what you're looking at. So if somebody starts a conversation with you, you can go, yes, I understand that, which I think is really important. That statistics and research methods comes together, and then, so although there's applied work in those two classes, there's also the final, what I'll consider the capstone course, that senior project 1 and 2, a 16-week sequence, 2 8-week courses, where you literally design a project, your idea, you research it, come up with the project, conduct the project, analyze the project, write it up, and it really is in consultation with the faculty members. So we don't just say, hey, do this. It's structured in a very scaffolded way, if that's a new verb I just created, where things are due in steps. So, do the first part of it, then you get feedback on it. So it can be created, so the final project is much better than it would be if you just did the whole thing at once. I think it's really good. What else? So yes, the kinds of things people tend to do, working within corporations, the corporate world, nonprofits, community organizations, government agencies. The couple of students that I'm thinking about have been more corporate in their work. I'm kind of hoping more people go into the nonprofit world. I kind of like that world. Getting into kind of the analyst roles, consultants, HR managers. We've had students involved in sort of the talent recruitment end of things. Multiple students have gone on from this degree to pursue additional graduate programs. From my take, it's a degree where learning about people helps out a business. That's just kind of all there is to it. We do believe that the job opportunities will continue to increase as more businesses, I think, become aware of the fact that it's not just accounting and economics and the bottom line. It's that businesses revolve around people and people skills. So things like multicultural psychology, like the theories of leadership and being able to apply them, like dealing with social conflict, understanding what kind of behavior happens within organizations, getting at the dynamics that occur within groups and how to best use those dynamics to make groups more effective, all become really important. And I think that is about my quick summary of organizational leadership. And from there, we can just slide over into psychology. So psychology, I kind of think, has maybe more baggage with it than the organizational leadership degree. Everybody's heard of psychology, which is both good and bad. Oh, what can you do with psychology? Oh, I can become a therapist. Well, yes, or a counselor. Yes, entirely true, often with some additional schooling, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But psychology is incredibly broad-based, and it's both a great benefit and a great drawback. I was talking to James a little earlier. One of the problems with psychology is that you can't simply do a job search for psychologists and come up with positions unless you basically have a PhD in psychology and want to be a, quote, psychologist. But psychology really underlies everything. I'm a social psychologist. If I wasn't in the education setting, I'd be working as a researcher for a research firm. Psychology underlies businesses. They're present in education, the health sector. I work with a lot of students here at Maryville who are interested in art and combining sort of psychology into the art world, both why certain colors are used. We're actually going to create, probably a couple of years now, but a psychology of design class. Why some people actually like gaming, what kind of games do people like. So psychology to me is this all-important field that kind of has tentacles that go everywhere. I might be a little biased as a social psychologist, but I really, really do think it's that fundamental to everything we do. So anyone who's interested, great. Again, nonprofits, other places that psychology is certainly applicable. Nonprofits, from one extent, how do you get people to volunteer, to work in a nonprofit? What does a nonprofit have to do to treat its volunteers well? There are a whole lot of nonprofits that couldn't exist if it wasn't for a volunteer base. And then there's the more direct work, I'll call it maybe social services or community services, rehabilitation clinics. So the direct, I'll go one-on-one or small group contact where the focus is really on helping individuals who happen to be struggling for a whole variety of reasons. Maybe it's domestic violence, maybe it's substance abuse, could be poverty, many, many possibilities. I will say that many students, maybe not many, a portion of students are interested in psychology because of what they know they can do if they pursue a graduate degree. If you want to be a licensed clinician, a graduate degree is necessary. But there are plenty of ways to even work in that in those one-on-one settings with people without a graduate degree. Psychiatric technician is a great example. There's also a psychiatric therapist, which is effectively a step up from a psychiatric technician. We've had a few people, former students, working in both those fields. Some of our students take psychology and get into human resource management, or take just the straight psychology degree and go into the business realm. We do know that jobs in the psychology field are going to grow, both for good reasons and for bad reasons. The therapy part of things, the world is moving forward at a really, really rapid pace, and with change comes difficulty. So from a job perspective, I think psychology is very powerful. Some highlights of our program. We really, really focus on critical thinking in this one. So a lot of psychology programs have a similar set of classes. So the American Psychological Association has created a, call it a table of learning goals and outcomes. And there are 5 big goals that we make sure that we hit. And most good programs in psychology will do something similar. Part of that is just focus on some content. So, you know there's going to be a class in human development. There's going to be a class on abnormality or mental illness. You should get a class in social psychology. The multicultural psychology kind of, again, to give us that perspective of the diverse world in which we live. Can't be overstated. Kind of human cognition, why we think the way we do, why we have some biases the way we do, why people insist on playing the lottery when it hits 600 million, even though the chances of winning are no greater than when it was at 20 million. And by the way, they're really, really small. There's a biological psychology course that I personally find fascinating. How does our brain actually work? How do the neurons in the brain function? How's that tied into our nervous system? And how does all that play in our behavior, our sleeping? What's the role of that in mental illness? So while I think most programs will have those courses and then a research methods course and a statistics course, I think it's how we put some of this stuff together. Our focus on projects, our focus on the real-world applications. I can't not mention that senior seminar again. It's something we created just before I started here, so probably 12 years ago. Not a lot of universities can do it with a large major. We've got a really, really good system in place for it to work. I think it's the best possible learning environment that can exist. I can tell you about research all day long. I can tell you this is how statistics work. I can tell you why this is important. But once you do it, once you physically immerse yourself in it and do it, you come away with an appreciation that you can't get any other way. At the end of the day, you may not want to become a researcher, and I'm okay with that, but you will come away with a much greater appreciation for what it takes to learn what researchers do and why it's important. We do also have early access to a number of master's degree programs. And we'll come back to that in just a second. So again, a little bit on our curriculum, 128 hours. We do this core set of courses that I mentioned, our social science research sequence that's equivalent across both the psych degree and the org leadership degree. General education classes, the importance of those really can't be overstated, particularly for a degree like psychology. They're all related together. Again, we're talking about people. People don't exist in isolation. History matters. Art matters. Literature matters. It makes us who we are. And then, one of the good things from my perspective is that both of these degrees, organizational leadership and psychology, are relatively small in terms of number of credits. So 39 credits for psychology, 42 for organizational leadership. Depending upon how many are transferred in, it gives you a lot of ability to take additional classes in areas that you may find interesting. Health psychology comes to mind. There are probably a couple more that jump to mind in just a bit. But so we've got a bunch of I'll call them elective psychology courses that fit around both the psych major and back to the organizational leadership major that can help fill exactly the areas that you may particularly be interested in. And I will say that the link to the grad programs is going to come up a little bit later, and James will be talking about that.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Green. As I was sitting there listening to Dr. Green, I couldn't help but think how fascinating this program is, and and just how good Dr. Green is at explaining what these courses do and why students would be interested in a program like this. So thank you very much for your insight and your expertise and allowing us to get to know the program just a little bit better and from your perspective. So I do want to thank you very much. Okay, so what should we expect here as an online student at Maryville University? So really, ultimately, when we have our online programs and when we develop them, one of our main things that kept coming back was the individual, right? How can we make this program right for the individual? We have people working full-time. We have people taking care of family members full-time, some doing both. And so how can we create a program that's going to work for just about every individual that comes to us and allow that type of flexibility that not only keeps that student engaged, but also puts them in a position in which they can be successful, be it working full-time and going to school. Okay, so as we talk about engaging interactive experiences, one of the things we place pride in is the interaction in this program. Ultimately, you are 100% online. You're not accountable to be in class, but we want you to feel like you are an individual and not just a number. So we do want to make sure that it is immersive, that it is interactive, so that way every minute that you spend with us, you really enjoy and you really get something from, okay? We have a fully asynchronous learning environment, so what that means is there are no required login times or days of the week. So I have plenty of students that work during the day. When they get home, they cook their meals, they take care of family, and the best time for them to log in and work on their assignments is in the evenings. I have some individuals that are working night shifts, so for them, working in the mornings on their assignments are best. And ultimately, we want to give you that ability to be able to fit it into your schedule however it fits best. So as long as you are keeping up with your assignments and you're submitting them when they're due, when you log in is completely up to you. So we talked about the personal schedule. As long as you submit those assignments, completely up to you when you work on your assignments. And our learning management system, we have information right there at your fingertips, whether or not it's on your computer, whether or not it's on your phone using one of our apps. So we want to make sure that it is accessible to you wherever you're at. Now, one of the things we have to understand here, and it really goes back to that interaction, but at the same time, the flexibility and support. So one of the things we want to make sure is that we do offer you tremendous support throughout the program, whether or not it's someone who's just interested in learning about the program and attending our webinar, or if it's getting through the program and starting. We want to make sure that we have a team around you to really support you throughout this process. So one of the very first things we do is we provide you with a personal online program advisor. So really the job of that advisor, which is myself, is really designed to help assist you. Okay, so from the time you inquire to the time you apply and the time hopefully we get you accepted into the program, you have a constant method of support. So it's my job there to help assist you through this process, making sure that we get your transcripts, where to send the transcripts, and ultimately being able to give you the best shot possible getting into the program. But then when you're in the program, dedicated technical support 24/7. So whether or not it's in the middle of the day or in the middle of the night, if for whatever reason you're having issues, we do have technical support that you can call so that way you can get your issues resolved at a moment's notice. The career and professional development, ultimately, we want to give you the resources that you need to be successful, which does include the online library. Within, we have a dedicated research librarian there to help you. And our writing studio, which is designed for individuals to help become better at their writing talents, but also to assist throughout that process. Okay, so after you've listened to this, you're probably saying, you know what, I like what I hear. This sounds like a program that's definitely going to fit my needs, but what do I need to do to be able to apply to the program? And ultimately, what do I need to do to be a good candidate for this program? So if you are an incoming freshman, so you graduated high school, you don't have any college credit, you're coming in fresh. So we do require that you have earned at least a high school diploma or your GED, and we would require that you have the official diploma sent to us. Now, we are looking at typically for students in high school that has graduated to have a minimum GPA of a 2.5 on a 4.0 scale within your high school work. Now, if you're below a 2.5, that is not an automatic disqualifier. Okay, we can still work with you, and then anything below a 2.5 will be still considered for admission just on a probational period. Okay, so we do have additional processes required there, but we'll definitely still try to help you out the best we can. Okay, and to get into the program, there are no standardized tests, so you won't have to worry about an ACT or SAT to get into the program. Now, on the other end, if you are a transfer student, so you have completed some college coursework, so we will accept transfer credits. Transfer credits will be determined once we do conduct an evaluation to determine exactly how many of those transfer credits will come in. Okay, for these individuals, we are looking for a minimum of a 2.0 GPA, although same as the high school GPA, if you are below a 2.0, that's not an automatic disqualifier. We will work with you on a probationary period. Okay, same as no SAT or ACT for the incoming freshmen. There are no GMAT, GRE requirements to get into this program. There are no standardized tests to get into the program. And then your associate's degree may also satisfy those general education requirements based on the incoming credits. Now, Dr. Green touched on this just a bit, but I wanted to go in a little bit more detail on our early access program. So what is early access? So anyone that is attending the bachelor's degree program, we do offer different options to allow you to select graduate programs for which you can take up to 12 credit hours that will transfer towards graduate credit while you're completing your undergraduate degree program. Okay, so of course, by having 12 additional credits, that will save time, that will save money ultimately in the end. So this does apply to those who are looking at going on for an MBA program, MS in cybersecurity, Master's in software development, health administration, business data analytics, or in the fall of 2019, we will be launching our Master of Arts in Strategic Communication. So typically for these individuals to qualify for the early access, you have to have completed a minimum of 75 hours towards your undergraduate degree with at least 20 hours here at Maryville University, okay? You do need to maintain at least a 3.25 GPA, and you would have to, of course, submit an application, and with your application, you would also include an essay, which typically we are looking at somewhere between 300 and 500 words, typically not much over 500 words, but talking to us about your interest in the graduate program. Okay, so I've decided that this is a good fit. I started my application process. So what should I do to request transcripts? How should my application be started, and what would make a strong application? So really, it's very, very simple to apply to the program. Ultimately, one of the first things you want to do is request your transcripts, as typically the transcripts do take a little bit longer than the application itself. We do want you to start requesting those transcripts right away. Okay. Now, we do accept both snail mail version and electronic. Obviously, if you can get the electronic transcripts, we do prefer that, as it is quicker and a much easier process. But if for whatever reason your school does not do electronic transcripts, that's totally fine. We would just expect the official transcript sent in the mail. Okay. And then you would complete your online application. We don't charge an application fee to apply, so there's nothing out of pocket to go ahead and apply to our program. As you can see here, deadlines for our upcoming spring 2019 session, we do have an application deadline of the 3rd of December for classes that do start on the 14th of January. Now, with that being said, that is our deadline. Obviously, if we can do this earlier, we should do this earlier, especially with the holidays coming up. We want to make sure that we get everything done early, because we don't wait for a specific time to render decisions. So essentially, once you've completed your application package, on average, we typically do find out whether or not we've been accepted in about 2 weeks. So the sooner we get the application package on file, the sooner you can get your decision, and the sooner you can start planning and making sure you're ready for the classes that start. Okay, so in terms of transcripts, what are some tips on transcripts? We talked about getting an early start on getting those transcripts requested. Okay, request one official transcript from your high school only if you have less than 60 transferable credit hours, and each and every institution that you've attended since high school. So this is going to be any colleges and universities that you've attended after high school. Now, if you have attended the military, we will need the military transcripts. And if you do have any electronic transcripts, this is much easier. So they would just be sent to admissions@online.maryville.edu. And if you don't have electronic transcripts, then you will send it to our offsite admissions center. Okay, so in terms of the application, as I had noted earlier in today's conversation, we do have all the documentation to your left that you'll be able to download, and it has all the information that we've talked about today. So in terms of the application, you can find the link to our online application in your resource list. And when you are completing the application, ensure that when you have to indicate the location that you are selecting the online, okay? And since you cannot make any edits to your application before you submit it, just make sure that you are selecting the right things. And if you have questions, you will have your advisor that you're working with to help assist you through that process. Okay, and we have included an application checklist, as I had stated, in the resources list, so it does have step-by-step exactly how to apply to the program. Okay, so tuition. Here at Maryville University, our tuition is going to be $500 per credit hour, and depending on whether or not you do work for one of our corporate partners, there may be additional discounts. The one fee is a $350 per semester fee, which covers your access to all services and resources that are provided to you through the university and are made available to each and every Maryville University student. Okay, and of course, in terms of paying for school, financial aid and other financing options are available to those who do apply and qualify. Typically, what you would be doing is filling out your FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. And when you are filling out your FAFSA, make sure you use our school code of 002482. And as I stated, that is the application process. If you are working with an advisor already, you would just reach back out to your advisor to help assist you throughout that process. That's really our job, is really to help you throughout that process and do everything we can to help you out. And we cherish being able to work with each and every student and being able to help them through this journey. Okay, so with that being said, I did want to open up the floor to any type of questions that we may have. And it looks like we do have a few questions already teed up. So one of our questions here, what is an MBA? Excellent question. An MBA is the Master of Business Administration. So that would be the advanced level business administration degree at the Master of Science level. Next question, how often do students have live dialogue with their instructors? So that's really going to depend on the instructor. Dr. Green, do you want to give any feedback you've had working with students in terms of dialogue?
That's a good question. And I think it's going to vary some depending upon the class and how the class is structured. And oddly, what you mean by kind of live dialogue. Faculty are really, really, really available. We hire people very specifically who know and who want to maintain sort of our engaged focus that we do on ground in the online environment. We understand the flexibility of the online environment, but you still should expect regular contact. So this isn't, I don't view online classes as kind of independent study classes. The faculty member is there probably every day, certainly every 2 days, very responsive to emails. Some faculty will set up call them live office hours, depending upon who's in the class and if that seems to work. I just got an email from one of my faculty members who was curious why her class this semester was a little bit different because nobody was taking advantage of those this time, and they had the last couple of times the class was offered. So it kind of depends, you know, but bottom line, there better be some really good contact between the faculty and the students. It's what I expect to see. So if that helps.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Dr. Green. So we have another question here. Besides the programs that were mentioned, are there other early access programs? So online, those are the early access programs that currently we have made available to our students. Next question, does your university work under a year-round system? Great question. So we do have 3 semesters per year, spring, summer, and fall. So yes, the answer would be we do go year-round. Of course, students have things that come up in life, and we're willing to work with you as much as we can. We understand that sometimes life does happen, of course. Just let your student advisor know, and they'll work with you to put together a plan, so that way if you do have to take any time off, we have a plan of getting you to come back, so that way you aren't really missing additional time. Can you have a job while studying an online BA? Absolutely. Many of our students are working. Some of these students are working full-time and raising families on the side as well. So can you have a job while studying? Most certainly. You absolutely can. Now, whether or not you're, depending on how you move through the program, if you're going to spend most of your time in full-time or part-time status, of course, that would be a conversation to have. But you most certainly can have a job while studying your online BA program, as most of our students do. Good question. I've been accepted in Maryville. I've set up all my logins. What's next? So depending on the individual where you're at, you would just want to make sure that you did reach out to your admissions advisor, who will be setting you up for all the next steps with student services and your welcome webinars and your Canvas orientations. So just make sure that you do follow back up with your admissions advisors, and they'd be more than happy to help assist you throughout that process. Okay. Let's look at another question here. Is it possible for me to obtain a PhD online in the future after the bachelor's in psychology? So Dr. Green, do you want to take this away?
Sure, I can try that one. Another really good question. It will depend in part on the field. So as I mentioned before, psychology is this great big huge field. There are probably literally 40 different paths in psychology, especially once you start talking about PhD programs. So some I haven't seen the area go online yet. You can actually get a PhD in biological psychology, and generally that involves a whole lot of work with mice and things. Really hard to pull off online. Counseling programs, clinical programs do exist online. There aren't a lot of them yet, but I expect to see that change as the world goes forward. Master's programs, which oftentimes are a step to the PhD, it depends again on the program, are becoming a little bit more numerous. So I'd say kind of depending upon the area, yes, it's a possibility. They can be very competitive to get into, just something to keep in mind. And it depends on whether you want a program from a not-for-profit or a for-profit institution. I think they also differ some ways there.
Perfect. Thank you for that. We have a question here. Are all online courses for the org leadership degree 8-week classes? Yes, so the way the program is designed, we do have 8-week courses. The reason why we do that is just easier for our students to be able to take 3 to 6 credits at a time, which will, at 6 credits, you're definitely at a full-time pace, but you're only having to focus on 2 courses at once. So instead of having to take 4, 5, 6 courses at once to maintain a full-time pace, you're really only having to take 2 every 8 weeks, and it's designed so that way it does have that flexibility. Are there proctored tests or examinations? Dr. Green?
Um, Again, I love this answer. It depends. In certain courses, yes, and in part to kind of maintain kind of the integrity of our courses and our programs. To me, it's really, really important that our degrees maintain their overall integrity. I want to know that 10 years from now, somebody who graduated with a degree from Maryville has a well-respected degree. One way to do that is to ensure that the work that's being done is being done appropriately. I don't like thinking that anybody is going to be dishonest, and it's certainly not an expectation I have, but I've been proven wrong before in my on-ground classes. But we also want to do it in ways that are I'm going to say more flexible. So we're experimenting, I'm going to call it an experiment, our online people might disagree with that a tiny bit, with our statistics class, and a way of sort of having a proctored exam, but proctored via the computer. So as long as your computer has a webcam, there's a way to have the exam be proctored. None of the courses in the psych program or leadership program, anything coming out of sort of the social sciences, requires any proctoring outside of, you don't have to go anywhere to have an exam proctored, if that makes sense.
Perfect. And the next question we have coming up, I will go ahead and answer the first part, and then Dr. Green the second part, if you don't mind. So the first part of the question is, will taking classes all year round allow us to graduate earlier? So the way the program is designed, it is year round, and for the full 4-year degree, it will take roughly 4 years. So that depending on whether or not you're going to be 4 years or less is really going to depend on whether or not you do have any type of transfer credit that comes into play. But in terms of graduating earlier, no, it'll still be 4 years. But we do it this way year-round, so that way you're only having to focus as a full-time pace for 2 courses every 8 weeks, instead of a traditional, 16-week or larger semester system, which you're having to focus on, a 32-week semester system, which you're having to focus on, 4, 5, 6 courses at once. Ultimately, we felt that for flexibility between students studying, being able to dedicate time towards their studies, and being able to take care of other obligations above and beyond that, 2 courses every 8 weeks is a pretty heavy workload, but one that's sustainable and manageable. But for you, Dr. Green, do you recommend students taking dual or double majors?
So another really, really great question. And I'd say again, man, I'm starting to not believe my own words. It depends a little bit. Oftentimes a double major may not make sense if you have to add additional hours. Like if it's going to take, 140 credits to actually get the double major, depending upon what you want to do, that may not be the best use of your time. However, if you can get a double major done in, the 128 or maybe 100, in the low 30s, and they're both majors that you like, absolutely. For instance, right now the psychology degree is online. One of the things that tends to happen on ground is students will pair that with a sociology degree. And so you get the perspective of the individual and the perspective of sort of a broader social perspective. While that degree doesn't currently exist online, we do have and will have an increasing number of sociology classes online. So initially it may not be a double major, but it might be a major and a minor. To me, it's all about creating a set of courses that makes you the best candidate for what you want to do. The flip side of that is if you are getting a degree simply because you like learning and you think psychology is fascinating, but you're also really interested in literature and history and everything else, then take the smattering and explore what you truly love. So, different answer depending upon the person.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So it looks like we have a couple more questions here. Next question is, when it says fall A or B, what does that mean? Are the courses divided? So the difference between A and B is just really the 8-week term for which students will start. So the fall A period has already passed, and our fall B, we're about to start shortly. So typically our students, the A term is the most traditional, but if for whatever reason we can't get done in time, we do have a B term start. So it really corresponds with the first 8 weeks of that 16-week semester or the second 8 weeks of the 16-week semester. And when we're talking about are the courses divided, yes. So 1 to 2 8-week courses the first 8 weeks, and then same in the second 8 weeks. Is the Bachelor in Psychology accredited by the APA? The Bachelor in Psychology is actually designed to adhere to the recommendations by the American Psychological Association, which emphasizes a broad foundation in courses that include experimental methodology, critical thinking, human development, and the biological, social, and clinical aspects of behavior.
If I can jump in for a second there, James?
Yes, sir.
Undergraduate programs cannot receive accreditation by the American Psychological Association. So that association does not accredit undergraduate programs. They do accredit graduate programs, but they're very insistent on not accrediting undergraduate programs. So we do follow their guidelines, and that's what we do to ensure we're as close to that as we can get.
Perfect. That's very, very helpful. Thank you for explaining that. And then it looks like the last question here, is there a graduate degree in psychology? As far as online, there is not one that I know of. Dr. Green, do you know of an online psychology degree that we have for the master's?
No, we do not. Not at this point.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you. So we are going to go ahead and wrap it up. If we do have additional questions, feel free to reach out to your advisor. We'd be more than happy to address those questions on a one-on-one basis as they arise. But to wrap up here, I do want to thank you all for attending today's webinar. There was a lot of great information passed. Dr. Green was phenomenal in explaining the program and in answering our questions here. And I really look forward to working with you individuals, and our whole team here look forward to working with you. If you do decide that this is the right fit for you, we're more than happy to assist. So I will leave you here with the final slide, just my information as an enrollment advisor, my phone number, and my email address. So if you do have questions, if you do need assistance, I'm here to help. If you are already working with an advisor, then reach out to the advisor that you've already established a rapport with and you've already been working with. And unless Dr. Green has any last comments?
No, other than, one other question just popped up. So, can I take the rest of my semesters on campus instead of online? One of the beautiful things, I think, is that the programs are designed to be effectively interchangeable. So the courses I build for on-ground are the same as the courses we offer online. Now, the on-ground ones run a whole semester, the online ones run 8 weeks, but they're literally the same course. Yes, if you're local or like the St. Louis area, absolutely take some of our classes on ground. I'd love to see you on campus.
Perfect, and thank you for answering that, Dr. Green. And it looks like you pretty much recapped the second part of that question. So once again, I do want to thank everyone for their participation today. Thank you for spending time with us. It was our pleasure to be able to host you tonight. Like I said, if you do have additional questions, just let us know, and we do hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.